Right, so I'm giving something a little bit different a go for the first time. I thought I would do a live just so I could connect with the lovely people that are in my YouTube community and really just show an insight into the things that I make when the kids are in bed. Now, I have got the monitor with me, so if it goes off, I might disappear. So hopefully that won't happen. And the things that I'm making tonight are all recipes that I make on rotation, and they've all been in my previous videos. So whilst the kids were having their stories, I had a milk bread dough proving. So we really like milk bread. It's just such an easy dough to have in. And I think because it has quite a bit of sugar in it, it does keep quite well. So the kids quite like having this for toast. Sometimes I use it for their sandwiches for school. And it's just, quite handy to have in the cupboard. We are trying to reduce the amount of bread that we're buying from the shops. So, we're giving this a go. Now, I have never done a live before, so I'm going to try and keep an eye on the chat on my laptop. But please do bear with me, as this is all very, very, very new to me. So when I'm shaping the milk bread, it's actually really, really easy. I'll just move that out of the way. You essentially just make a big plait out of dough. And I don't know if anybody else who follows me has young children or grandchildren, but they all seem to be obsessed with K-pop Demon Hunters at the moment. And one of our kids has decided that a milk bread actually is just a roomy plait bread, which I can kind of see actually. It does look a little bit like her plait. Now, normally I would make a slightly larger one, but we seem to be back on to having like yogurt bowls and porridge for breakfast at the moment. So I'm just doing a small one this week. I'm also going to be topping up our freezer pancake stash as we officially cleared it out this morning. And I'm going to be making some jam as well with the leftover blueberries from the pancakes. Now, one of the comments I had on my recent video was that it could be helpful to see how I do things in real time. I don't think I'm brave enough yet to show one of my monthly batch cook videos in real time, because behind the scenes, it is a pretty chaotic affair. But I thought I'll start small and do some of our favourite snacks. I know these recipes very, very well. And you can see how quick it is actually once you find some recipes that you really like. So I've shaped the bread into a plait, and that will just have a little bit longer now on its tray to prove before I pop an egg wash over the top. So the next thing I'm going to do is get my blueberries and turn them into a jam, and also pop them into my sheet pancakes batter. So again, if you've followed my channel or you've seen me on Instagram, you'll know that I love making chia jam because it's just so easy, and it's great for the kids to have in their sandwiches, on top of yogurt, porridge, and it literally couldn't be easier to make. So I've just put some frozen blueberries into a glass dish, and I'm going to put them in the microwave now just so that it can heat up, and then I'm going to mash them. Now, these blueberries I got from a shop called Farm Foods. If you're watching from the UK, you might find that there's a Farm Foods near you. And I've never thought to go into that shop before, but actually they have amazing value deals on frozen veg and frozen fruit. And I think I got these in like a 10 for £10 deal. And I did a price comparison at the time, and it was even cheaper than Aldi, which actually really did surprise me. And I think the reason it was cheaper is the bags are a really big size. And yeah, super handy to have nearby. I'm glad we've got our farm foods in our town. So whilst the microwave heats up the blueberries, I'm just going to get my chia seeds ready. So the jam literally couldn't be easier to make because it only has 2 ingredients. It's literally just frozen blueberries and some chia seeds. Now, when I first made this jam, I thought I'm probably going to have to sweeten it with some honey or some maple syrup or something like that. But actually, it's perfectly fine just with those 2 ingredients. The next thing I'm going to make after this is my sheet pancakes. And I'm just waiting at the moment for some bananas that I've popped in here to thaw slightly. I had loads of bananas that suddenly went overripe. And so I popped them all in the freezer because they're perfect for these sorts of recipes like pancakes or cakes, things like that. And then finally, I'm going to have a go at making some mini muffins in my favourite mini muffin tray, as the kids have truly cleared me out of the stash of that. And I really, really need some more in the freezer, as they are just perfect for their lunch boxes. So let me just go check on those blueberries and then we'll get mashing it up. So they've warmed through nicely. I don't know if you can tell, there's a bit of liquid coming off them, which is perfect. Because when you're using chia seeds in the jam, they do take on quite a lot of moisture. And so I've found that heating up the berries first is quite a good way to get a nice texture of the jam. It also means that you can mash some of the berries up a little bit, and that just helps keep the jam nice and smooth. And I think there are certain fruits that work better with this sort of recipe than others. A while back, I did an 80s dinner party for my dad. And as part of it, I made a Black Forest gateau cake. And I used frozen cherries to top the cake. But I had loads left. And I turned some of them into a jam. But actually, the cherries were a bit too chunky and the jam wasn't as good as when I do it with blueberries or raspberries. So I'm just going to pop my chia seeds in, give it a little stir, and I can work out if I need any more. And it won't look like much now because it needs to have a good amount of time in the fridge to thicken up. But once it has thickened up, the chia seeds will absorb all of the moisture from that blueberry juice, and you'll end up with a really lovely jam. So I'm just going to add a little bit more. There we go. Let me find my lid. So that's all done. It's going to go in the fridge now. And tomorrow I'll probably pop this on the kids' yogurt bowl for breakfast. So I'll just go pop that in the fridge. Now I'm going to start making my pancake batter, and please do forgive me if this ends up being really loud on the recording, because I am going to blend it all up in the Thermomix, which is quite loud when it's going, but it won't be for very long. So let's just get everything I need. So I quite like making these pancakes for the kids because you literally just pour it all onto one baking sheet on a tray and bake it in the oven. And then you can slice it up into little strips and then just reheat them in the air fryer in the morning when you need them. And you'll find that the batter does make quite a lot in terms of a portion. I also like the fact that you can kind of adapt the flavour of it. I mean, I've got quite a lot of frozen blueberries today, so mine are going to be blueberry. You can put whatever you want in them, really. I would say if you are using frozen fruit, to not go too overboard like I have done in the past, because when they cook, they do release quite a bit of moisture, and it can make the pancake batter quite wet if you're not careful with it. So before I had a Thermomix, I did just used to make this in my food processor. So essentially the only reason I'm doing it in here is I want quite a smooth batter. But any normal food processor or blender would be fine to do this. If you were feeling extra strong, you could whisk it by hand, but I'm being a bit lazy. So I've popped in my flour and my baking powder. The bananas are already in, so I'm going to add some eggs now. And you can actually do this recipe using a chia egg, where you mix up chia seeds with some water to make it kind of bind into a gel, and then turn that into the binder. But I prefer doing it with eggs, this recipe. Oh my goodness, dropped the egg. That's not a good start. Our kids recently have got really into baking, and they really like helping crack the eggs, which is quite handy because I don't think I'm that good at it actually. So the eggs are in. I'm going to add in some milk now. What I find so handy about using the Thermomix when I'm baking is it has scales built in, so you can just do everything in the one jog, which is super handy. It just cuts down the washing up. And when I'm finished with this, I won't put it on whilst I'm still doing this recording because that is quite loud. You can put on a setting which just cleans itself, which is super handy, especially if you've made like pancake batter. So I'm going to sweeten mine with a little bit of maple syrup. And now I'm going to whiz it up. I am going to walk around and see if I can mute my microphone for this bit, because it will be quite loud and it's probably not very pleasant to listen to. So let's just get it set up. Right, so I have to apologise. My microphone didn't want to mute itself, and hopefully hasn't muted itself now. So you might have had to hear that, but at least it was only for 10 seconds. So I'm just going to get some grease-proof paper. And then I'll line my tray. So this is mixed up nicely. I think it's always worth checking that there's not any lumps. And then I'm just going to pour it into my tray. Spoke too soon. There is one chunk of banana that didn't blend up. Just put that there. Then just smooth it out until it's nice and flat. I find this is so much easier than standing over the hob in the morning trying to make individual pancakes, because it just takes so long. Whereas this, literally, we just wake up, come downstairs, grab this from the freezer, pop it in the air fryer, and I can get on with all the other stuff that I need to do. So the batter has been laid out. I'm just gonna scatter some blueberries over the top. I try really hard not to touch these frozen blueberries, because the last time I filmed a video where I was scattering it with my hands were like stained purple with blueberry juice. So I'm trying not to touch them too much. Just spread these out a little bit. Add a couple more. Okay. And then I'm feeling kind to the children today, so we're going to put a few chocolate chips in them, because they always like it when there's a sprinkling of chocolate chips in there. Okay, so that is now done. This one, have a look. And I'm going to put this in the oven now. The oven's been heating up behind me, and these will cook for about 20 to 25 minutes until they're golden on the top. My milk bread still needs a little bit longer to prove, so I'm going to get on with making the mini muffins. So for the mini muffins, I'm going to soak some raisins in a bit of boiling water. I always call them raisins, but I end up using sultanas, so I'm doing sultanas. And the recipe that I'm doing tonight is from one of my favourite children's nutritionists. And I just love this recipe. It's so easy to make. And I really like the fact that with the sultanas, they sweeten the cakes, and so you don't need any refined sugar. It's also really handy if you've got some overripe bananas in the house that need using up. This is a really fun recipe to do with the kids as well, because it doesn't require any raw egg or anything like that. So if they want to have a go at making it and they want to taste some as they go along, it doesn't matter too much, because there's not any raw ingredients in it. When when my children have their friends over, this is quite a fun one to do with them, because they can get stuck in, and I'm not worried about anyone getting sick. It's always quite handy when I've got one of them home to get them doing a bit of baking, because it saves me a job in the evening refilling the freezer. And I find the kids have really good ideas for recipes. So one of the recipes on my Instagram was a recipe that our little girl created. She said she wanted to do like a hybrid between like a cornflake crispy cake and a flapjack, and it actually turned out really nice. It was really tasty. So maybe I should put them in charge a bit more of what we should be eating. Although I do think they're much better at coming up with cake, biscuits, sweets recipes than they are with dinner. So I always forget how much flour to put in, so I'm just going to look up how much flour I should put in. You think the amount of times that I've made this recipe, I would know this off by heart, but it's always the flour that gets me. There we go. So I'll do some flour. I just had the fear then because the monitor just went off, but I think it was me bumping the kitchen worktop. I once made a sheet pancake and I did it a bit too late at night, and just my luck, when it was in the oven, one of them woke up and it was a bit of a race against time to make sure I was back downstairs before the pancake burnt. So I feel like if I'm ever going to do any baking, it's always as soon as they've gone to bed, I've got to get that out the way first. So once you get past a certain time, you never know what's in store. So I've weighed out my flour. So I'm going to add that in. And then I'm using cacao powder to add extra flavour to this recipe. And I really love using cacao powder. Again, if you've watched any of my snack videos or some of my shorts, you'll know that I like using cacao powder because it's less processed than cocoa powder. And I always buy mine in big bags like this from Amazon. There isn't necessarily a specific brand that I would recommend because I really just look and see what the prices are at the time, as they can be quite expensive, these bags of cacao powder, but they do last a long time. So it's a worthy investment. I also really like using it to make things like hot chocolates. Sometimes I pop it in Greek yogurt with a bit of peanut butter to give that a little bit of a different taste. It's quite a handy tool, quite a handy ingredient to have in the kitchen. So I'm going to loosen this up with a bit of milk. And then this recipe actually uses vegetable oil, which I've forgotten to get out the cupboard, so I'm just going to go and grab that. It's so nice to finally be in our kitchen and be using it and cooking again. Again, if you're new to my channel, we were without a kitchen for about 6 months last year because we did a complete kitchen renovation. Where I'm standing right now actually used to be like the conservatory area. We had this really old-fashioned conservatory on our house that was just not really fit for purpose. It was boiling hot in the summer and freezing cold in the winter. So we never really used it. And yeah, this now is our kitchen, which is very exciting. But it was a long time cooking out of other people's kitchens and just waiting for it to be ready. So I am very glad that we're finally back in and can enjoy the space. And where I cook in most of my videos is on our kitchen island. And I just love the fact that we've got the space now when we have people around just to have lots of food out, and it just has become a lot more easier to host people in the house. Okay. Now with this, I tend to add the milk as I go, as you might have seen, because it's kind of hard to gauge how wet the batter is going to be. And then I'm just going to pop to the sink and drain the liquid off my sultanas. And I have kept the batter a little bit thicker than I want, because obviously when I stir these in, they've got a little bit of liquid in them from being soaked in the boiling water. And they will loosen the batter up slightly. And then the final touch is somewhere here. I've got some white chocolate chips, which I'm going to pop into the batter. I'm also going to add a little bit of chia seeds as well. I actually forgot to add these the last time I was making these cakes. I just think it's a nice way to add a little bit of extra fibre without them really knowing that it's there. Just give that a stir. I think once you get into the habit of popping things in your freezer, especially easy to make lunchbox fillers like these muffins, it's really just a great thing, because it just means that you've always got something in that can be like an after school snack. You could have it with a picnic, pop it in a lunchbox. Just saves you so much time in the long run. And I think like topping up like I'm doing now as you go, it just means you don't need to spend hours and hours in the kitchen. And I know I do love doing a good batch cooking session, but you can just do a little bit and often and have a good stash going in your freezer. And I am thinking, if the feedback from this live is good and people find it helpful, I might do more of these, like just quick snapshots into the kitchen of the things that I'm making pretty frequently, as I think it's just a slightly nicer way to show how I'm cooking. Also, I have been on quite a steep learning curve in terms of video editing, and I actually secretly really like the fact that once this live is done, if I've understood it correctly, it will just sit on my YouTube channel as a video that people could come back to, that I've not had to do any editing on. I've not done any voiceover. So yeah, that's a real win in my eyes. So I think that's a big incentive for me to do more of these alongside my other videos as well. And that's something I think I've found tricky on the Instagram side of things, is if you use Instagram or TikTok, there are so many like beautifully edited videos with amazing composition and lighting and everything like that. And I feel like I'm very much a home cook. And as you've seen, the mess is slowly piling up on this worktop. And the behind the scenes when I make my batch cook videos is just like sheer mess and chaos. And often my husband gets roped in half the way through when he comes in the kitchen to take his lunch break, to help me try and stack the dishwashers and just clear a little bit of the mess. Because yeah, I think it's easy to underestimate how long it actually takes to get it all set up and looking nice. But it's been a good learning curve so far. And on the YouTube side of things, I really do appreciate all of the really lovely comments that everybody leaves on my videos. I think, you see a lot of not very nice comments online and on the internet and on videos, and I'm very grateful that 99% of the comments that I've had have been very kind, very generous, and just really helpful with really good suggestions. And the reason I'm doing this live actually is off the back of one of the comments that I had on, it was either a community post or a video not that long ago. So thank you for giving me the confidence to give this a go. So I filled my first mini muffin tray. Just pop that out the way there. I'm going to get my next one out. I really love this mini muffin tray because you know, I've made like 24 cakes already here, and I've still got more batter. And it hasn't taken me that long to make the mix, but because I'm doing it in such small portions, it just goes such a long way, which is really, really, really helpful. And I know I have put some chocolate chips in here, but with it being quite a small portion, I don't really mind that going in the lunchbox. As if I bought them like shop bought mini muffins, they would have way more extra things in. I saw a video on Instagram of someone making their own homemade chocolate chips, which was seriously impressive, but I don't know whether I'm ever going to have enough time to be able to do that. So, but that's how you would make them, not as processed as the ones that I've used. Right. Just fill up the last one. So they're ready to go in. I'm just going to get my oven tray, have a check of my pancakes, and then I'll pop these in the oven. So these only need about 15 minutes. So I think by the time they're done, the pancakes should be ready to come out as well. Right, so I've only got one thing left to do now, besides the clear up. So if I just move these things out of the way. I'm going to pop my milk back in the fridge, and then I'm going to finish off the last steps of the milk bread. Right, so with the milk bread, the thing that gives it a really nice golden colour on the outside is just doing a very simple egg wash. And you can do it just with egg yolk, but I'm going to do it using all of the egg. When I made brioche for the first time at home, it was amazing to see what a lovely colour doing a yolk-only egg wash had on the brioche rolls, but I'm being a bit stingy tonight. I don't know if you heard that in the background. One of our children has just got up, had a bit of a cough, and has laid herself back down. So hopefully she has settled herself, but we will see. It's so crazy to think we're in June and we've still got these coughs and colds. So I just find it wreaks havoc with bedtime. Now, she is actually sat up, so if you bear with me for 1 second, she's timed it pretty well. It's a pretty good time to do it. I'm just going to go and help her settle back down, and then I will be back. All right, I am back. Crisis averted. Hopefully she is settled now. We will see. Can she hold out until the milk bread is finished cooking? Let's find out. So I've got this little like silicone brush that I'm going to just brush my egg wash onto the bread with. Now I used to have like a wooden brush with natural hairs, like I don't know what it was, like natural fibers, but I just found that I couldn't get it clean. So yeah, I've moved over to silicone. Now I am sorry to tell you that she has sat up again. So in a slightly unconventional live, I am going to disappear once more, but I will be back shortly. All right. Well, as with the way with children, I'm afraid she is going to need me for a little bit longer. So I am going to pause this live and I will come back a little bit later. I'm not going to pop this in the oven yet for obvious reasons. And if you would like to join later, you can see how this looks when it comes out the oven and these bakes once they are done. So thank you for those people who joined for this first bit. I'm sorry I wasn't here for the last part, but if you are a mum or a dad or a grandparent, you'll know the show. So thank you for joining and stay tuned for part 2, where hopefully she will have settled and you can see what the bread looks like.